Hey, I'm Stephen Glosser.
And I'm Megan Pikert.
Welcome to the Going Somewhere podcast,
a podcast for anyone who finds themselves in the ambiguous adventure of young adulthood.
A season that's marked by uncertainty, change, love, heartbreak, and a whole lot of big decisions.
Join us for some real conversations as we dig into what it looks like to be a follower of Jesus in this beautiful yet complicated season of life.
We're so glad you're here, and we'd love to have you join our little Going Somewhere podcast community. Follow us on Instagram at goingsomewhere.podcast and join the conversation.
We're all going somewhere. We might as well go there together.
Thanks for listening. Let's jump into today's episode. Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 84 of the Going Somewhere podcast. Steven here, joined by
Megan.
Megan is here, as always, and so we're here for another great conversation. We're going to be talking a little bit about the power of reflection and pause, but before we do that, we're going to pause and reflect on this past weekend, because I think sometimes, when I listen to a podcast anyways, I don't like to just listen to a podcast. It's just like, here's the 10 things you need to know about life. I kind of like getting to know the people. So maybe our listeners are the same as me, or they're not, and they're annoyed right now. But
yeah, you want to be friends with everyone that you listen to on a podcast, basically.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
And so to be friends with somebody, you have to know like what's going on in your life. Mm-hmm. So that's why we're doing this. So what did you do this weekend?
This weekend, I was at your guys' house again.
Oh, yeah.
With Kevin. You guys were out of town again.
We gave you a full day warning this time.
Yes. A call the night before? 2 nights. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it was at least
well enough
24
time.
hours.
Yeah. And, but we know I love to hang with Kevin and to have a house.
But just for context, just about every time we leave for a trip or like a weekend, we totally forget that somebody has to watch Kevin. And so like it's not even on our radar. And last time, 2 weekends ago, you texted us saying, hey, who's watching Kevin? And we're like, you are.
You are, yeah. Which I think I asked that knowing the response.
Exactly.
But so I was with Kevin, but also had no plans on Saturday. So I went to the farmer's market with a friend.
Nice.
And it was so nice. It was just a restful day. And so, yeah, it was a good weekend. I pretended like I was a homeowner in your guys' house cooking food.
You did have to go into pet owner duties.
Yeah, so Kevin's getting older, and with that comes, accidents.
Yes.
And to this day, I don't know which end it came out of, but your couch saw some stuff.
Yep.
This weekend, but I cleaned it, and that was so satisfying. I felt like such an adult texting Taylor with all your cleaning supplies out in the living room. And I was like, it's already got this on it. And then I'm moving to this and this. And Taylor was like, sounds great. Thank you so much. And I was like, this feels like big adulting stuff that I know how to use cleaning products and that I got it all out, I think, from...
Yeah, you did. The inside still had some color to it, but you can't see it from the outside. So that doesn't matter. Yeah, no, it's sad. Kevin is 15, and we got him when he was 6, so we've had him for 9 years, and it's been a good run. And he's coming to the end of his days. We just have that feeling, he's having accidents, he's peeing in the house a little bit. It's just not the same, and so it's pretty sad. Like there's times where like that reality kind of sinks in, and it's like, oh man, Kevin's time may be short. So we're trying to soak it in. We're trying to soak it in, and we're also trying to soak up his pee. And
right.
Fluids.
I was laughing when you guys were leaving. I was at your house already, and you came running back in quick, and you just gave Kevin a hug, and you're like, you just never know. And in my head, I was like, if this dog dies this weekend, it's gonna be so sad.
So much peace of mind. The owner just came back to say goodbye one more time.
I was like, okay, this is a new fear unlocked that Kevin dies on my watch.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I mean, it's where we're at. That is definitely where we're at. He's healthy. Like, I don't know. It's weird though. Like he's not, showing like terrible signs. Like those are the signs that he's showing that we're basing everything off of. But trying to navigate that. But yeah, well, you were at our house. We were in the cities. This was a trip we had planned for a while, actually, with all of Taylor's family. So her sisters, their husbands, kids, and grandparents. Our kids' grandparents, my in-laws. And so, yeah, we stayed at a hotel. We went to a Twins game, went to the Mall of America, and it was super fun. We've never done that as like a whole family. And so it was a good time. Summit loved the Twins game. He was like locked in. He actually enjoyed like the baseball and was asking me questions the entire game and celebrating. The others were just there for the Dippy Dots and the ice cream and the cotton candy and all the
Someone's got to be there for that stuff.
Somebody's got to be there for that. But I would say, well, the Mall of America too, roller coasters. We went on the log chute. We stood in line for an hour and a half. We had no idea. It's not like Disney World. Disney World has like the queue time, so you know what you're getting into. Well, this one, there was a line, but it's like where you enter the line is maybe 30 feet from the visible place that people are getting. What they don't warn you is that you go into the building and it's like zigzagging. We thought we were there and we got to a corner and it was just a room full of zigzags.
No.
And we're like, oh my goodness. And so many people were walking past us. For the first while, we thought that, do they make the people that ride the ride walk through the whole line again? Because that was so many people leaving. And so we stuck it through. We kept our mental composure. Taylor and I worked together as a team, and we made it. And the kids loved it. And we did a couple other roller coasters, and it was a blast. But I would say one of the highlights, though, was just swimming at the hotel. It had a 9-foot end, like a 9-foot deep end. And our kids are learning to swim, like their life jackets off when they're in 3 feet of water type deal. Well, for whatever reason, they just like both Summit and Kinsley, the 9 feet just unlocked something in their brains because I think they like rely on their tiptoes and like hop in the 3-foot water. Well, when they got in the 9-foot, they just started swimming. They were just treading water and swimming across it. And Summit was like a little bit, let's keep our eyes on it. But Kinsley was just having the time of her life, and Grandma was there, who's like a swim coach and a swim instructor. So she was teaching them different things, and they were like loving it. And so it was so much fun. It was like one of the first times we've been at a pool and felt like, oh, okay, we're almost there, like with those guys anyway. So it was a super fun weekend. It was one of those things that we just hadn't crossed that off the list in our family with like going on a trip with the in-laws and everybody coming with, and the cousins were there. And so it was just a super fun weekend.
That's so fun. That sounds like a blast. I'm glad you guys stuck with the log chute, because that's so fun. And I feel like you guys were even talking to the kids about it before you left, that, hey, there's a water slide type roller coaster ride. Yeah. And they were excited for it. So
for sure. And again, it was, they were I was actually impressed with their patience in the line. But yeah, just seeing their faces like on the rides and stuff. And we did go on one roller coaster that was maybe a little too intense for Summit, but he made it. And every other ride he went on, he said, "Oh, can we do it again?" This one, he did not say that.
There's always one.
But he was fine. He was fine. He's not scarred for life. So, but yeah, I think honestly, what we just did, just taking that time to reflect, is something that I don't think a lot of people do very often. I think it's maybe more foreign to us than we'd like to admit, that actually just taking the time to pause and reflect on different things. And obviously for us in our house, school is near, because Taylor was out with Kinsley last night and they went school shopping, and all the stuff in our living room last night was like, oh my goodness, it is for us 2 weeks away from when we're recording this. But it's just kind of crazy. And the thought that I had was like, man, summer went really fast, and it felt like one of those, blink and you'll miss it summers. But the thing that I've been doing for a long time now is taking time to kind of pause in the midst of it. And so even though it's gone really fast, like I feel like I saw it and I was there for it. And I think that's part of what, to me, reflection can do. And so when you think of reflecting and pausing, like what comes to your mind?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I'm just a very internal processing type person, and so I do a lot of reflecting no matter what. But I think for this season of my life, the monthly reflecting has been a game changer because it sometimes you can reflect on like the big moments in life, like the when you're in a huge changing season or whatever. But when you take time consistently and routinely to reflect, I feel like it changes a lot of, okay, this month went really well. What were the things that went well? Instead of letting your life kind of pass you by, and then just kind of having a highlight reel of the big stuff in your head. I think monthly reflecting has changed it, of just, why am I grateful for what's happening right now? Like, where my feet are right now in this moment. What has gone well? What have I learned? What do I need to change? And instead of kind of looking back on a whole season and being like, holy moly, that really didn't go well, or that lasted longer than I wanted it to. But yeah, so it's kind of provided just those natural pauses to make sure that like life isn't happening to me, but I'm really engaging with it. Yeah, and it's been a game changer for me, but this is something that you've been doing a lot longer than I have. So how did you kind of start wanting to reflect on your life, or has it been something that you've always focused on and kind of grown into, or?
Definitely haven't always done it. I think it came from a place of just kind of realizing that I went from a few different jobs. We moved out of state, like all the moving and stuff like that, I think just kind of created like that natural pause. And so that time in my life was a lot of like reflecting. It was a lot of looking back and a lot of just seeing both the good and the bad, like seeing the good in man, God put some really cool people in my life, Pastor Brad, Pastor Dave, just people that really made an impact. And I noticed it in the time. Like, it wasn't like I was unaware that how great Brad was when I was working with him. But once I like removed myself and I was gone and life just slowed down naturally, I was just like, of course I miss Brad, but also I was able to see like the evidence of Brad's influence in my life, like the way that I thought, the way that I looked towards the future, the way that I handled people and ministry in general was a lot of the influence of Brad. And so I think in that slower season, I realized some of that stuff, but also it caused me to recognize some of the negative stuff. And so in that pause, we've talked about it on the podcast before, but there was some people that I had worked with that shared some things with me towards the end of my time working with them of like, hey, these are some things that were really frustrating working with you. And these were some of the behaviors that maybe negatively impacted us or negatively impacted our team. And at the time, it was hard to hear them. I knew that there was some truth to it, like sprinkled in. But then as I like sat with it and I just brought that to the Lord and had the space to do so, that was kind of like an eye opener. Like the whole idea of dumb spots, blind spots, deaf spots, like they revealed some things to me. And I've become really grateful for that moment and those people, because I think that was kind of an eye opener to, it wasn't like, oh man, I'm an evil person and everything about what I did was wrong. It was just like, there were some things that I didn't realize the negative effect they had on people. And God's really, dulled some of those sharp edges and has opened my eyes to some of those ways that my personality naturally are going to affect different people with different personalities. So the person with, a similar personality to me might not be rubbed by direct statement that I see as just like, I'm just cutting through the noise. I don't want to leave room for ambiguity. I'm just going to say exactly what I think. Where somebody that is more sensitive personality is like, he just got so mad at me, mm-hmm. and he hates me. and so just realizing like, yeah, communication is not what's said, it's what's received. And so, I say all that to say, like, that was a time for me, I think, that I just realized, man, there's so much benefit to pausing. And so I had this kind of built-in time in my life where everything slowed down and COVID was involved in that. And so I think that kind of became my invitation to, what if I intentionally did this on a regular basis instead of waiting for another pandemic or waiting, just the way that our work worked was that we would have kind of sprint seasons and then pullback seasons. Like, what if I built in the pullback season where I didn't wait for somebody else to give that to me, but I just made that? So I started doing I started doing the yearly reflection, and then that kind of led to like, what if I just did a stripped down mini version that takes 15 minutes and I can just sit with a notebook and just really look at that month. And so that's something that we've kind of weaved into our monthly marriage meeting now too. And so, I just think for me, it went from like a surprise gift to like hey, you can sign up for a subscription of a gift that you get in your mailbox every single month. And that is just the gift of reflection, the gift of taking note of the good things in your life, the things that you need to focus on, the relationships that maybe are hurting right now. It just kind of creates that pause instead of going 2 years and being like, man, that friend that I haven't talked to them in 2 years. Like in that monthly rhythm, I can realize like, man, there's something out of whack here with this person and I should reach out to them, or I should try to meet up with them and figure this out. So that's a little bit of, I would say, kind of like where kind of my focus on this came from. And then just seeing in doing so, starting with the yearly, just seeing like, whoa, these patterns or these gratitudes, stretching myself and what I'm thankful for, was just, those bring a lot of joy, like knowing those things are in my life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think I noticed this before, but since being like intentional with reflecting, I've noticed how biblical it is and how like we are called to remember so often in scripture. Like there's so many verses about remember this, do not forget the things the Lord has done, things like that. But then we also see so often that I was actually reading in Matthew this morning, and Matthew 13, and like Jesus just went to a solitary place to pray. And there's so many times that we read in the Gospels too where Jesus was removing himself from a current situation to pause, to go back to prayer, to reflect, to get prepared for what was to come too. And I think I've noticed that so much more since being intentional with it in my own life, that this is a biblical rhythm to establish that Jesus models for us. And if that's the goal, to become like Jesus, then we need to do the things that he did. And I've just been learning that so much. And it was just interesting to read that this morning, knowing we were going to record this. And I was like, man, this is just everywhere all the time. And it really has changed the way that I move throughout my life too, in the pace that I set for myself as well.
Yeah. And it's definitely countercultural, I think not just reflection, like people do that. It's not like people don't reflect or pause, but I think the normal pace is pretty quick. And especially this time of year where, like I said, Taylor and Kinsey went school shopping and I wasn't there, but I can only imagine that there's probably a lot of other people doing the same thing, because that's what we do. And I think that like that pull is always gonna come at us. And I think there's times where being in a fast-paced time and season is normal, and fall is one of those that for a lot of people that are college age students, or like going back to school, there's more on your plate. You're navigating a new schedule, you're trying to fit in work, and you're trying to fit in friendships, and the things that maybe were easier in the summer become really hard in the fall. And so you fight for that and you do it, and there's a few months that it feels like, wow, that went really fast. And I think that's natural, but I think that's why it's so important to kind of build that in. And so today, we're not going to talk about just like, here's the questions you can ask. We've kind of developed something that allows you to walk through that on a monthly basis. So we'll give that to you in this episode because, obviously we're coming up on the end of August here. So this is a perfect time to sit with a notebook and ask yourself some questions. So we have some of those for you, but what we want to do is just kind of reinforce like the why and just talk about like, what are the benefits of reflection? So Megan, what's the first benefit of reflection?
The first benefit is clarity, which I feel like we kind of talked about this in last week's episode with growth plan and things like that, of knowing where are you and where do you want to go. And so how has life been going this last month, the last couple weeks, however long you're reflecting? It just provides clarity to what's actually happening in your life. What's your current reality? And I think a lot of times we are very like goal oriented, or like we know where we want to go. And I think that's why New Year's resolutions like are so popular, because people are like, yeah, I'm setting goals, I'm doing things without the realization of where am I currently.
Yeah.
That's unachievable, and that goal is too high. And it doesn't make the goal bad, it's just not sustainable. And so I think the first benefit is just clarity, pausing. Anything to add to that too?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think the clarity thing is so big because, you know, when you move fast, everything looks like a blur, you know, like that's just kind of the natural feel is like things are a little blurry when you're moving really fast. And so when you do pause and you get that clarity, whether that's positive clarity of like, oh, these are the things that are in my life, God has been more faithful and I've realized the wins, the strengths, the things that are going really well, but it also gives clarity of what isn't going well. And sometimes as much as it's like nice to sometimes not realize like, oh, this habit is affecting the people around me, also pausing will actually create the space for that to be made whole and to made new again. So sometimes clarity is hard, but it's good. And so sometimes that pausing to sit on something can feel like anti-positive, which is negative. That's that
Right,
word.
right.
Yeah. Okay. But yeah, pausing cuts through the noise and gives you a fresh perspective. And like you said, it helps you actually see what's really happening. And there's this quote by Annie Dillard. It's like A Writer's Life is, I think, the book. And the quote is, how you spend your days is how you spend your life. And I think this idea of clarity kind of gives you that space to see, how am I spending my days? Because over the course of a month, there's 30, 31 days, 28 if you're to February, you know. But in that time frame, you can really take inventory of your days, because how you spend your days is how you spend your life. And Proverbs 4:26 says, give careful thought to the paths for your feet and be steadfast in all of your ways. And so I love that, just giving careful thought to the paths of your feet, like taking careful inventory of where you've been and where your feet are pointed towards, and will oftentimes bring you a lot of clarity. So what's the second benefit of reflection?
Second is it gives an opportunity for growth. So reflection highlights patterns, both healthy and unhealthy. We kind of talked about that too. But it's so that you can be realigned with what you want and who you want to become. And so the goal is clarity, but also growth. So where am I going now that I know where I'm at? And we can't really do that without pausing. I think sometimes life is moving so fast that it feels easier to just keep going and just barrel through, and like this is life. And but there's also a way to live life to the fullest, which we talk about a ton, that we can live life, but Jesus offers abundant life. And so I think pausing and reflecting allows us to realign with that of, are we living abundantly, or are we just living? And I think, speaking as a young adult, that's one of the hardest things to navigate, is when you step into working a full-time job. You've always had natural like pauses and transition seasons your whole life, you know, middle school, high school, college. And then all of a sudden you get a couple years out of college and you're like, wait, this is just my life. This is it. There's no really big thing other than, you know, marriage and kids, but you've done your life, you're living it. And I just had that kind of epiphany the last maybe couple weeks of just, okay, do I enjoy this? Do I enjoy the life that I'm living? And if not, why? And if not, how can I? And how can I move forward in it?
Yeah, I think you had mentioned like the New Year's resolutions, and how New Year's resolutions are kind of an interesting thing that people will kind of say, hey, it's a new year, let's set all these big resolutions, where I think like the built-in monthly reflection thing actually kind of brings it back down and allows you to actually go, okay, now what do I need to do to grow into that New Year's resolution? If the New Year's resolution was to lose 50 pounds, you know, like after 1 month, you're able to go, okay, where am I at on this? And what do I need to do to continue moving forward? And to your point about young adults too, And just the idea of school is like these built-ins of, all right, I get summer vacation, I have Christmas break, I have spring break, and there's these like built-in kind of moments to stop. And again, like you said, once you get into work, you know, summer slows down maybe a little bit depending on where you work, but you don't have like Christmas break to the full extent. You don't have spring break. And so reflection does allow you to kind of navigate, how am I going to grow? How am I growing? Where do I want to grow towards? So that's the second one. What is number 3?
Number 3 provides peace. And I think, we could all just use more peace probably in life. But I think you get clarity, and then you learn how to grow, and you walk instead of run through life, I think maybe is how I would describe it. But it's pausing, it slows your soul, grounds your emotions, and resets perspective. And I think sometimes in my life, if I'm moving so fast or I'm in a really busy season, I just keep being busy because I don't realize that I'm lacking peace, or I don't take the time to sit and pause and think about like that I'm out of alignment with where I'm going. I'm just like, keep moving. Like you'll get through it, and you can pause later. But there is a way, done healthily, that you can move in a state of peace at all times. It's hard, and it takes the reflecting, takes the pausing, takes the submitting back to the Lord of why you're doing the things that you're doing. But I think that's something I'm learning, and probably constantly will throughout my whole life, is that you can operate from a state of peace. And it just takes a lot of intentionality to get there.
I think peace is pretty synonymous with like stillness, or the absence of chaos, you know? And so I think that we sometimes maybe deceive ourselves into thinking that like peace is just going to appear, you know? And I think peace comes in the midst of chaos. Like God's peace supersedes all. But at the same time, the times in my life that I've really experienced peace in the midst of chaos, or experienced his peace when things around me are kind of unsettled and unsettling, are the times that I just give myself a moment to be with him. And, you know, it's just kind of like God's voice, you know, is it Elijah or Elisha? I always mix it up, but it's not in the storm. It's not in the thunder. It's not in like the big display of power. It's in the whisper. And, Mark Batterson, in this kids book that we read to our kids, he talks about, why does God whisper? He whispers so you have to get near, you know, like this idea of the nearness of when we create space to get close to God is when we can hear his voice. And so I think that to me is where peace oftentimes comes. It's like when that moment or that thing that's going on in my life, I vividly remember like my grandma passing away, or well, actually she didn't. It was one of her false alarms. She had a lot of false alarms. She's kind of like Kevin, you know?
Just playing tricks on everyone.
Yeah. And so there's many times we said goodbye to grandma and said hello the next day, you know? But this particular time I was in high school, my parents were all, I think she had a surgery that went wrong. And so my parents were in Minneapolis or wherever the surgery was. And I stayed back because it was supposed to be pretty routine or whatever. And, you know, I got the call saying like, hey, I don't know if she's going to make it through the night. And I just remember being alone in my house and just like, really, this is before like I really got to know God. This is actually part of like one of those moments that was kind of along the path of like leading me towards a deeper relationship with God, because I remember being so upset and so scared and being in my room and just like inviting God there, like, God, if you're real, you know, kind of one of those things. And I just remember feeling like this deep sense of peace, like not like, oh, it's going to be okay peace, but just I'm with you peace. And I think that's what is missing in a lot of our lives, at least at different times, is that I'm with you peace. And Psalm 46:10, it says, be still and know that I am God. That first part is be still. And I think that is kind of what reflection and pause does in my life. And that's why this third benefit is peace, because it really does create that space to be still. And, you know, for me, reflection isn't plotting and planning. Reflection is is mainly looking back, mainly seeing what's happening, and in the present, there's an element to, okay, because of all of this, what should I do next? You know, like, how should I move forward? But that's all coming from a place of, I took the time to just sit and allow God to speak to me, and allow God to reveal things to me, and allow God to open my eyes to see things that I couldn't see in the faster pace of life. And so that's where peace has come in a lot of ways for me. But what do you think? You know, I think there's a lot of people listening to this today. They're like, oh, this is so great, you know, but something's holding them back from actually saying, hey, I'm going to try this. I'm going to take a time before the end of this month to reflect on the month of August. Like, what's holding them back from that?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things. I think I relate with a lot of excuses of why I don't reflect, or why I miss a month, or why I'd never started, and a lot of it was just time. It takes time to do this. And so it's just, I don't have enough time. I don't have a time to pause. I don't have it in my schedule. And but then I think also where I got tripped up a ton, which I think is relatable to a lot of people, is, what do I reflect about? What questions should I be asking? What should I be thinking about? What do I write down? What's worth it? And I think I kind of blew it up to be this idea of, oh my gosh, this is big. Like,
Yeah.
there is so much to reflecting. Where do I start? And so asking the right questions can be a challenge if you don't have a guide with you. And then it's awkward. It's uncomfortable. It's like, I don't want to get real. I don't want to have to admit that I was wrong in this situation, or this friendship isn't what I thought it was going to be, or something like that. It can be uncomfortable to think back and reflect. And I think that holds people back too, of having to get real and get honest about where they're at and what's happened.
For sure. I think I felt all of those things, especially the time one. It's just like, man, I don't have time because I'm always going. You know, I think that felt like that for a while, is the time that I have available to me, I want to live. You know, like, I want to actually experience what is happening. So I want to sit with my friend. I want to sit with my spouse. I want to do the thing. And I've just realized though that all of that becomes more, you know, it happens more often when we pause, because what we realize when we pause is like, oh, the reason that I feel like I only have 10 minutes to spend with the person I love is because I'm wasting 50, you know? And I realize that because I reflect, and because I, you know, part of my reflection at times, I don't do this every month, but is going through my screen time on my phone. And it's like, oh, 4 hours on Instagram today. I wonder if that was the best use of that 4 hours. So I think that's what it does, is that actually it's kind of like one of those things you invest in the short term, it feels like a loss, but you get so much more in return when you do it. And just a couple quick like tips too is, one, just keep it short. 10-15 minutes is all that it needs to take. It can take more if you want it to, but just to write down a couple wins, write down a couple things that you're struggling with, write down a few things you're grateful for. It doesn't have to take you all day. This can be a part of something that is in your natural kind of devotional time, or it can be a set aside time. The second is to use a guide or a few key questions, which we'll give. The questions that we ask are not the only or the best in the world. It's just what has worked for me. You've started doing it. Other people have done it with us. And then number 3, kind of quick tip, is to make it a ritual. Make it a rhythm. An end of the month with a coffee, on a walk. Do it doing something that you enjoy. That could be on your phone. It could be a note that you have on your phone that you just change the title to and you make a copy of it every month, or it can be in a notebook. For me, that's what I like to do. I like to just write, and the act of actually picking up the pencil, and it takes longer and all that stuff. But put it on your calendar and actually schedule it. It could be the last Friday of the month, the last Saturday of the month, the last Sunday of the month. But just making it a part of that, like it's on your calendar, just like any other important meeting is, you know. I've just had to do that in a lot of different things. The marriage meeting is one of those. Like, we schedule it the month in advance, so we know when it's going to happen. And this is the same thing. You can schedule that monthly kind of check-in with yourself, put it on your calendar. like, I don't know, Sundays seem like a great time because for the most part, people aren't like caught up into a bunch of things. So it could be the 20 minutes before you go to church, or right after church, or before you go to bed on a Sunday night. Just taking that time to sit there and do that. So we do want to give you kind of access to the thing that we've been using, which is our kind of monthly reflection guide. It's a simple, free, and structured way to build this rhythm. It has, I think, about 7 core questions, and you could add to it, but like a couple of them we shared are what are some wins from this past month, and what were some challenges? Is there a question in there for you that kind of stands out?
I think, well, now you're putting me on the spot, but I think it's on there, making a list of things you're grateful for, or I've just included that.
Yep.
Okay. And that's been really big for me, of just cultivating a heart of gratitude and seeing like the little ways that life has been really sweet. Because sometimes you're not going to remember like, oh, your friend bought you a coffee, you know?
Yep.
And so I think that's been fun to then go back and review later on, is that, oh my gosh, I have so much to be grateful for that I was missing because I wasn't appreciating it or taking time to think about it.
Yeah, for sure. I think without, giving all of it, because you can read this and we have it in the show notes. But another one too is like, what are you proud of? A decision, an accomplishment, a friendship that you're proud of from this past month. And I think that framing it like what's a win is one way to frame that question up. But another more specific is that when you do stop, and this, I've asked that question at different times. That's like a question I like is like, what are you proud of? Because it kind of takes you out of the grind of whatever it is. And you go like, I am proud that I was a part of this, or that I got to lead this, or got to do this. And I think the idea of the friendship, like I'm proud of the intentionality that I've had with this particular friendship. So we just want to give you that to walk through over this month. And we'd love to hear like how does it add value to your life, and what other questions are you answering? So before this month slips away, take time to pause, download the guide, and find a quiet space to see what God might show you, both about where you've been, but also where you're going. And we'd love to see and hear how that goes for you. But let's recap today's episode. What was kind of the big idea today, Megan?
Big idea. Pausing is important. It provides clarity, it helps you grow, and it creates peace in your life. And so sitting, pausing, reflecting on where you've been and where you can go, and living your life abundantly, not just living.
Absolutely. And we hope that in your pausing, you realize that there's more good in your life than you realize. We hope that you realize that you're doing better than you think you are. One of the things that I come back to so many times in conversations with young adults is you are not behind, you're right on time. And I hope that you can realize that when you take the time to pause today, that just because maybe there's people in your similar workspace or season that have things you don't have, or that are in a place that you want to be someday, or in a relationship that you desire someday, just because you don't have that doesn't mean you're behind. And so hopefully just the art of pause and reflection can give you the space for God to minister to you and speak to you in those places where there's an ache, in those places where there's something that you feel like is missing. But in reality, God is closer than you think, and that he has more for you than you know. So we hope that you're encouraged today, and we look forward to catching up with you next week on the podcast. And as always, if you are listening and you enjoy this podcast, make sure you share it with a friend. Make sure you, like it, rate it, review it, do all those things. Those help other people find the podcast. But we're all going somewhere.
We might as well go there together.
All right. See you later.